Hello. That red frowny face is an understatement. See, I crave challenge, a truly masochistic experience, so I gave myself the hardest scenario I could come up with. All of our colonists have every awful perk, zeros in every skill, and our starting colonist has no passions. Amicia demonstrates what that means by ruining their first harvest. It's okay, she's only starving and naked as a brutal winter arrives, it's not a big deal. Those bad perks make her almost useless. A regular colonist will work 3 times as fast, move 50% faster, fail fewer tasks, take half as long to heal off their wounds, gain more experience, have a better mood, and a lot more. But Amicia has a long list of redeeming qualities. Chopping 2 trees takes her over 2 hours, but Amicia eventually hauls everything she owns to a clearing and uses the clay laying around on the ground to make a tiny shack. Wait, no. She leaves to try and harvest some hay for a simple bed, catches hypothermia, and then almost immediately passes out from the cold. By the time she wakes up, she's close to starving to death. The woman eats a bit of raw food, which worsens her mood and makes her immediately rebel. Now she won't take orders for half a day, but instead of doing something useful like sleeping, she's just gonna stand around in the cold. Welcome to the impossible run. Now's a good time to talk about goals for the run. I want to beat the game, finish the research tree, beat 10 raids in fairish combat, and stock a full year's worth of food in a village that never lets my villagers be unhappy. It's gonna be quite the long journey. I tried this challenge before, and even though it was easier then, I still failed. But I've improved as a player, and I think that this is possible. Barely. Amicia finishes her shack and unlocks the research tree. This is the first reason the run is harder. When I tried this last time, there was a bug that made global work speed and motor function work in reverse for production jobs like this. But that's been fixed, so research and other production jobs are gonna take forever. A clay brazier goes in not for the light, but for the heat. Without clothes, that fire is the only thing that'll keep them warm enough to stay conscious. Her life's going to alternate between researching inside to warm up and going outside to grab the berries and wood that she actually needs to survive. She eventually scrounges up enough food to cook a meal, but her mood disagrees with the idea, and she rebels for the second time in just over 2 days. That means she'll eat raw berries, further worsening her mood and using up precious food. At least she rests inside this time, where the fire can help keep her warm. She eventually wakes up to help prepare some meals. Her background as a chef gives her enough culinary experience that I can't get rid of, so that she makes 4 meals instead of 3. At least she's not wasting food. Those nearby berries are all she's gonna have till spring's thaw. A trader arrives. I don't even need to check to know that I can't afford whatever they want. I'd anger their faction and kill them if I could, but with no weapons and without the time to build a trap, that's just not gonna happen. Amicia can at least build a backgammon table to help with her mood, and then put a shrine in on the next day. Praying at it is enough to finally get their mood target above 25. With the 25-point buff of being a new villager, which is temporary and is gonna run out soon. Amicia's first potential friend arrives, but the pissy, foul-tempered woman turns them away. I'm not even gonna call her a coward. I mean, she is, but a raid was after the woman, and we'd have no way to defend ourselves. Churl as she is, turning them away still incurs a mood penalty. Maybe there's a hint of goodness in that cold heart of hers after all. Halfway through the first season, and we haven't unlocked the technology despite focusing only on that, putting together this single hovel, and maintaining starvation rations. A few ruined harvests do leave nutrition a bit touch and go, but being a Churl, contemplative, elf shot, laggardly, moribund, sluggardly, stout, vulnerable, and chilly dullard shouldn't stop Amicia from surviving the winter. I'm gonna use some of the space we have for an animal pen. I can't actually tame any anytime soon, but some wild ones might wander into this pen once food for the winter runs out. It gets finished and stocked as snow thaws for the first time all winter. All the nearby plants mean that this probably is not gonna get used for a long time, but rent still is starting at 1800 for the month. With spring near and the temperature rising, it's time to finally leave for longer than the hour it takes the cold to start biting in. The south side of this plateau gets a full wall, while the north will eventually be an actual entrance. That's one season that Amicia has survived. She unlocked the first 2 technologies, but that's about it, and the new season comes with new problems. I want to accept the next colonist, which means raids, on the hardest difficulty when I'm way behind the curve. I do have one trick up my sleeve, but it's a bit cheap. I'm going to show it off once, then beat every raid after that fair. Winter had stopped nearby berry bushes from growing, but now that they are, we've got enough food to invest some in the future. Amicia plants all afternoon until another rebellion takes her. These are going to be a lot more frequent now that her initial optimism is gone, but luckily she recovers in time to not put on a bad show for the first new villager. God, why do they all have such weird names? I'm gonna call her Ellis. Ellis is a savage engineer who heard that there was someone out there just as wholly incompetent as she is. Though she's a good bit better than Amicia. I use dev tools to drop her skills down to the right levels, but I can't get rid of her passions, so they're gonna stay. The woman will be a good researcher and a good soldier, plus maybe a carpenter. The pair only have 1 bed, and there's no tall grass on the map to get hay for a second yet. The 2 instead fight over it, which ultimately prompts the unpleasant Amicia to throw a temper tantrum. I mean, that actually does solve the issue for now, so yay. Their other interactions don't go any better. The 2 are both mean and pissy. They fight over the singular bed, and they begrudgingly divide up the work for proper separated bedrooms. Amicia works through the night to finish the garden, then goes to sleep as Ellis wakes up, does a bit of mining, and finally finishes the bedroom's walls. It takes the rest of the day for the first grass of spring to grow, so we can cut it down, but Amicia is working third shift right now anyways, so that's okay. Alright, I hope you're ready for a big brain play. If you tell a villager to prioritize hauling something, they'll only haul that singular stack, but by harvesting 2 in a diagonal line, I can tell Amicia to grab the furthest, wait for her to stand on the closer one, then tell her to haul it. She drops the stack she had on top of the other one, and then hauls them both back at once. God, my gaming chair is the best. If this doesn't deserve a like on the video, I don't know what will. So ignore the fact that I spent 15 precious books unlocking furniture that takes a construction of 10 to make. Amicia only has a skill of like 6. She can't train up by finishing the actual room part of the bedrooms and putting a hay sleeping spot in. Proper beds also need a construction skill of 10. I have no idea how I always forget about construction requirements. Well, more building is gonna require more clay. Let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone and start on the front for the kinda cheap defenses. If you watched my recent video on an underground vampire challenge, you might have a decent idea of what I'm doing here. Another rebellion doesn't stop Amicia from making a table. Maybe she knows it'll eventually help with her mood later, or maybe she just wants a construction of 10 to make herself a proper bed. She eventually gets over it to finish chairs for the table specifically positioned in front of a wall so that they can't see the shoddy village they live in. A cellar can start getting mined out just in front, and then a butchering table can go in above ground. I don't actually have the bows or anything else to get animal corpses to cut up here, but Amicia still needs construction experience, and I will use this eventually. A merchant caravan arrives, and that actually brings up the first band action. If I killed all of them, and I absolutely could using a pretty simple trap, they'd drop everything they brought to trade. Flawless weapons, great armor, food, and other resources. It'd all make the game way too easy. So, rule number 1. No harming merchants. I am going to buy some barley and cabbage seeds, then plant them near the unused animal pen. Ellis mines more clay for future building projects, while Amicia trains up, but the woman finally hits 10 in construction and goes to build the bookshelves that the library to be needs. Slowly. Very slowly. I cut out a lot of this kind of thing, so it's hard to appreciate how little work gets done here, but this is my village after almost 2 full seasons. I'm pretty sure a default regular village would be further along in just 2 days. It's kinda sad. The shelves go in, the backgammon table gets moved out just before the woman rebels, and that makes the library an official one. Amicia's finally got something to be proud of. She's gonna use that skill to be building a lot of high quality, highly technical stuff in the future. A new colonist. I wonder what they're good at. Okay game, I get it. Okay, it's not even a day later. Subtle. Oswald arrives to eat our food and make sure that we're short on beds again. 2 proper ones go in after deconstructing the hay sleeping spots earlier, but there's not enough hay for a third. Oswald the Grouch specifically finishes the first one just after Amicia passed out to make sure he'd have a nice spot to sleep the night away. But despite having a good builder now, there actually isn't that much more to build. Oswald's gonna help plant and harvest. Botany takes a lot of time and there's lots of it to do. We need to harvest some flax to the villages north and replant those seeds a bit closer in addition to all of our food stuff. The winter is gonna be brutal if we haven't made outfits by then. A part of me wants to skip fermenting and go straight for brewing, which actually doesn't require you to unlock fermenting in the first place, but that's too far off while mood's still an issue. More berries are needed to prepare for the cheap stuff, as my 4th technology, half a year in. God, realizing that's made me feel distinctly bitter unlocking this. Can you feel it in the click? Or in the way that Oswald takes all night to actually build it? At least he can get a nice nap in the next day. And then we can actually go about making booze. Fermenting fruit juice gets queued up for Amicia to make from red currants. Once done, that product needs to be stored properly for a few days to actually ferment. Not 12 days though, that's too warm. And not in the food cellar either, that's too cold. I guess we need a booze cellar to make it just right. That's gonna get a brazier and a couple torches to flick on and off to adjust that temperature as needed. The first cabbage is ready. Yeah, okay, that tracks for the run. It's a good source of food, freeing red currants up to turn into wine. Botany work continues, ensuring that we build up enough food and drink to actually survive the winter. The latter's at least close for now. Only a couple of days separate our villagers from the cheap stuff. You know what goes real well with booze? Weapons. Specifically, bows. We'll be outnumbered way too much to fight in a more fair melee fight for a while. I sure am glad that these rebellious colonists are gonna have weapons and booze soon. I don't see how that goes wrong. The first bow comes out flimsy, which is not surprising. Ellis might have a passion in carpentry, but her skill is still 0. The second's just as bad. That eating area gets an expansion to be a great hall soon-ish, but I'm more interested in the third bow. that Ellis leaves at 99% done to go eat, then sleep. I swear, they're not just churl to each other, they're rude to me too. This one at least comes out sturdy. Awful for most villages, but a huge accomplishment for us. And that deserves a celebration, so it's nice that booze is gonna be done really soon. This is only rough wine, so drinking it won't give them a mood buff, but it will at least get rid of that -6 penalty that they've had since the start. I'll also go ahead and unlock decorative structures to build a great hall and get another small buff there. This big building gets a wall knocked out to make it big enough, and then a kitchen attached just for fun. It gets 8 decorative shields, which ironically we can't actually make real shields yet, and then a few torches go in to give Oswald light as he removes the butchering table and replaces it with a regular one. And that's the great hall finished. That should take care of their mood needs until, well, probably not actually that long. I'm guessing there are some more challenges coming up pretty soon. I'll go ahead and unlock tailoring and start to work on a bench for it. It's early autumn now, and settlers are already starting to be chilly. They need proper winter outfits soon. As if on command, Behild arrives soon after. She's not much of a tailor, but she likes it, and that's leagues better than everyone else. She'll focus on that and help hauling, since we're starting to make quite a mess back in the base. We're actually already pretty close to having a bedroom for her. I'd assume that we'd get a runaway followed by a raid pretty soon, but with a 4th colonist, I'm instead assuming that we're gonna get attacked any day now. That means the final defensive touches need to go in. It's a simple enough area for now, but it should do. Behild makes outfits, Amicia gardens, Oswald mines and builds, and Ellis researches. It's a good balance, but balance can't be preserved forever. Raiders are here to threaten it. This is another reason the game's gonna be harder. Last run, enemy raids left after a time. I only had to stall fights out, but I've modded the game to get rid of that timer, so these guys are gonna stay until one side's dead. This is gonna be, well, not actually that hard. A fair fight would be hard, but I don't intend to fight this fight anywhere close to fair. I intend to have everyone else sleep. I mean, at least for a bit. This is gonna be a long fight, and passing out or rebelling because they're exhausted could be disastrous. The raiders do eventually near, and our villagers get into position in time for our enemies to stream in. This fight's gonna start with our 4 villagers fighting off 3 enemy archers at the bare minimum. Those 9 melee fighters are a lot more manageable. They're gonna slowly start beating on our doors while the archers shoot arrows. The distance means that we miss a lot, but they do as well. Their better gear and higher skill are more than negated by the high ground and cover that we have. They do break down the first door and start beating on the second before we even finish one archer though. We aren't taking much damage, but the outgoing damage is incredibly low, which is why we can't fight this fair. That second door is almost down, and it's time for a change in strategy. Behild runs up to deconstruct the floor in front of our base, and without a way in, the enemies start meandering about. But that's not a good result. They're gonna retreat and get out of range soon, and I want to kill all of them so they can't get a larger party and siege weapons and come back in. 5 hours after the raid starts, the second archer goes down, and I deconstruct the door they were trying to break down in the first place, and then build it back in again. Amicia dislikes the idea and rebels, but Behild builds a floor in just to spite her. Oswald joins in on the spite building by putting a wall in on the approach. With a new way in back on the table, the melee enemies wander close without realizing what Oswald's doing. Ellis kills the last enemy archer just as the wall finishes, so Behild takes out the floor and the plan is complete. These enemies are trapped. Well, they're more target dummies than enemies at this point. This gives the villagers a chance to rest, recover, and relax. Except Ellis. What a workaholic. Behild eventually has enough and goes back to the front line. Others join in until they're all there in the early morning again. That raid really ruined their sleep schedules. I'm not happy that I have to handle it this way, but only half the enemies are dead a full day after they arrived, and we've done nothing but shoot and fulfill basic needs. But that's the last time I'm doing something like this. Despite their bad motor function having their attack speed, bad combat skills, horrible gear, and everything else, next time a raid arrives, they'll have a path in the entire time, and I'll kill all of them despite that. Or die horribly. Either way, I hope you'll join me for it.